because by this time they were separated. And the newspapers got news of it in St. Louis, and finally they were divorced. Well, her husband told all kinds of bad tales about it, that she was putting people in transit because she was hypnotic. She was out there getting all the money. It was just a bunch of money racketeering. Did all the things he could do to discredit her because she would not give him the money that he wanted. Finally, it kind of just faded away. He married a 16-year-old girl and died a month later after they were married of typhoid fever. I'll say one comment, and you can judge it however you want to, but I would never mess with women preachers. There's something about when you mess with them, you kind of get in trouble. Historically, you can see that, and even in the Bible, when you mess with some of the good women, something happens, folks. So you can say what you want, but as for me, I'm not going to mess with them. If I disagree with them, I'll leave them alone and let God deal with them. But whoever messed with Mother Etter, throughout her life, there were people who tried to, do her wrong. Like in Frisco one night, there was a man during this meeting I was telling you about that came to heckle her and come out against her while she was preaching. And she said, "God judge thee." And she pointed at him, and his tongue swelled up, the newspaper reported, like the size of a small banana, and hung out over his bottom lip. And he could not pull it back in his mouth, nor could he shut his mouth, nor could he eat, and barely drink. And so he ran out of the tent screaming the best he could with this condition. His friends looked at him, and finally they went to the doctor, and there could nothing be done. He came back to the tent and through writing told her, "Fix my mouth, fix my tongue." He goes, "Nope, I won't pray for you and ask God to heal you until you repent and get right." He goes, "I don't want that." So he stormed back out of the tent. Talking about a hard believer and a hard person to bring into believing, or hard sinner, to bring into believing. That was him. Finally, about 2 days later, she agreed. After he said, "I'll get saved," showed him in the sinner's prayer. He nodded his head and said, "I agree." She slapped his mouth, and the tongue went down to normal, and that's the way he became later a great Pentecostal preacher in that part of the country. So Mother Etter had a lot of demonstrations, and even folks that came against her kind of was dealt with kind of roughly sometimes by God and by herself. But people loved her. They saw her heart. She won thousands to the Lord. But her husband, Mr. Woodworth, died a month after marrying a 16-year-old girl of typhoid fever. She only wrote very little about him in the book and never even hardly mentioned the death of her first husband. A few years goes by. She meets Mr. Etter, Samuel